I found out my wife was planning to cheat on me, and I decided to leave. Yet I'm the bad guy. My wife and I have been together for 14 years. We have 2 children together, an 11-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. I work in finance, and my wife is an IT consultant. My wife usually has to go on a business trip every 3 or 4 months. Since it's the IT field, the team is full of guys. I never really cared about that. The company always pays for them to have separate hotel rooms. We usually check in with each other when we're away. About a week and a half ago, I was looking up the contact information for one of our friends to transfer it to my phone. When I was searching, my wife received a text message from a woman named Lisa. She had never mentioned Elisa to me, and I started reading through the conversation. I began reading it and couldn't get through 2 messages before my heart exploded. Turns out Lisa was just a pseudonym for one of her coworkers. They were graphic, intimate texts about what they would do to each other. I couldn't read more than a few because it hurt so much. I did my best to keep my composure and asked her later that night if there was anything she wanted to tell me. She just pretended and said no. I remained as calm as I could and had the longest night trying to sleep. The next day, I told her we needed to talk. I said I was thinking about ending our marriage, but there was a beautiful woman named Lisa that I wanted to do X, Y, and Z with her, quoting from her conversation. She was confused at first, then she realized I knew. She immediately started sobbing and walked out, starting to cry. My kids came over and began asking me what was going on. I told them that Dad was going away for a while. I went upstairs, grabbed the essentials, and stayed at my friend's house. Emotionally, my heart was on fire at that moment, and I didn't want to get violent in front of my kids. I left because I didn't know how much longer I could keep my composure. Since then, my wife has been frantically texting me. I told her I don't want to work things out. I want a divorce. I told my parents and her parents about the situation. Parents encouraged me to try to work things out. I said no. My parents, on the other hand, said they'd support me no matter what happened. About a week after my discovery, my wife found out I was at a friend's house from someone. She ended up driving to the house. She started banging on the door. My friend and I answered. I told her she needed to leave, and she ended up forcing her way into the house. I went to the guest room where I was staying. I sat on my bed. She started screaming in my face, begging me to talk to her. I sat there speechless and then asked her to leave. Eventually, she left, crying and yelling at the same time. I began provoking her after she got into her car. I ended up hearing later that she got into an accident. She totaled the car. Since then, I returned to take care of things until my wife recovers, but I still plan to move forward with a divorce. I've already consulted a lawyer and started organizing my finances. Now everyone is telling me to forgive her, saying this is punishment enough. Even my parents are telling me to work things out with her. They're saying I'm throwing everything away. My pride is keeping me from trying to make things work. What really bothers me is that she's been going on these business trips for years with the same people, so it's highly unlikely that the time I caught her was the first and only time. I tried talking to her about this, but she's sticking to her story. Without any further evidence, I think I'll never know. I don't believe her words at all. My kids have been asking me what's going on, and I told them that this is something they can ask their mother. I don't want to look like the bad dad who left the family, but I also don't want to create a negative impression of their mom. So I'm letting her decide what story she wants to tell them. When my wife was begging me to stay after her affair, our marriage counselor told her, there are 2 types of people in the world, those who can forgive infidelity and those who can't. Your husband can't. Apparently, neither can you. That's okay. It's who you are. So honor that and be true to yourself. Along the way, I managed to forgive her, but I still divorced her because I didn't believe in her anymore. I didn't trust her anymore. And I understood that without trust, the relationship is over. So divorce her because the trust is broken. You should tell your kids something. At the very least, tell them you're just helping around the house because of the accident. You still plan on moving out. You don't want to give them false hopes. They need to know what's going on, or there will be trust issues in the long run. When my kids asked about the reason for the divorce, I just said, it's adult stuff. I'll tell you when you're older.
I think you leaving was a bad idea from a custody standpoint. I also think not telling your kids is a mistake. You don't have to go into details, but right now, they're wondering why you're acting so crazy, and you probably seem like the problem. You should just say that your wife is cheating on you with a coworker and that you both are getting a divorce, and that you'd like them to live with you, but if they'd prefer, you can do shared custody. Don't go overboard with it, but at least tell them the basics of what's going on. Next time your parents say you need to work things out, ask them if they would work things out if they found out their spouse had been cheating on them for years with a coworker. My guess is they'd say no, and that would be the end of it. The fact that your wife listed this guy with a fake name just shows that this was fully premeditated. You have no reason whatsoever to trust her, and if you feel like ending it, I think that's perfectly valid. At the same time, ending a marriage with kids is always a judgment call, and if you want to stay and work it out, I think that's okay too. How would you feel if you found out the affair had just started and wasn't going on for a long time? And if your wife left her job, would that help? And if you cheated on someone else, would that help? Try to think about what it would take for you to be willing to stay, if anything, and then you'll know when to leave if you don't get whatever that is.
My ex-fiancée left me before our wedding. It's been 16 years, and now she wants to talk about it again. Should we reopen old wounds? I never got an explanation. She just left and didn't tell anyone. It was literally right before our big wedding ceremony. She didn't leave a note, nothing. She just left. Even her family was puzzled. She just got up and went. We had dated all through high school and all through college. She eventually came back, but not to me. I had to find out through third parties, her parents, that she had no intention of coming home. She wanted nothing to do with me and told her parents to keep me away. I never had a choice in the matter. I respected her wishes. I never understood why she did it. My only guess is that she had a mental breakdown because she cut off all contact with everyone. We were both young and still growing up. I don't know, but I've struggled with it ever since. Out of nowhere, she DM'd me on Facebook after all these years and wants to meet. I'm flooded with emotions right now. Angry, nervous, hopeful, sad. I still have feelings for her. I don't know if I could take her back, but looking at her Facebook, I miss her. She's even more beautiful than before and single. I'm conflicted. She doesn't say anything about why she left. She said it's best done in person. The only thing I can tell is that her Facebook has a bunch of posts about feeling weak, living a life full of shame, regret, and loneliness. It's ridiculous. She ghosted me, and I shouldn't want anything to do with her, but damn, I still have feelings for her. I never stop thinking about her. What should I do? Ghost her in return? Meet up with her? See where this meeting takes us? Date. Well, that was something. At least I got closure. We met at a cafe and sat down to talk outside. The first thing I noticed was how scarred her arms were and how much pain was in her face. Long story short, she wanted to break up long before the wedding, but she was too weak and cowardly to speak for herself. She had a complete mental breakdown over everything. She was tired of being forced to do things she never wanted to do and never having the courage to speak up for herself. She was mad at her family for pressuring her to get married and have kids. She was mad at them for pushing her into a degree she didn't want. She was mad at herself for not being able to speak up. Nothing she did was justified, which we both agreed on. When I first proposed to her, I did it in a public place. I put her in a tough situation, and she wanted to say no, but she couldn't stand to see me hurt. She was right. I made all the choices for her. I was a very different person back then, and she was very meek. She just went along with things, never had the courage. I often stifled her voice and rarely gave her a chance to grow and become her own person. Back then, I was generally only focused on myself. Well, everything came to a head, and she had a complete mental breakdown. She ran from her problems on the advice of her best friend and the only person in the world she trusted. As she said, it's the only thing she knows how to do, run. She never had the courage to speak up. Her life just spiraled downhill. She was homeless for a few years after her best friend's husband kicked her out. The rest of that time was spent in jail, though she didn't specify what for. She was released about a year ago and has been turning her life around. She has a job, reconnected with her parents, and finally, she's reaching out to me. She never stopped trying to contact me. As for our future, we have none. We both agreed to end things and go our separate ways. We've both changed, two different people. We have nothing in common, and we don't live close to each other. She doesn't justify what she did nor wants to be forgiven. She finds it repulsive and is ashamed of her actions. I wanted to be mad, but I couldn't. I just forgave her. With that, we shook hands, said goodbye, and that will likely be the last time we ever see each other. It's bittersweet. I got the closure I wanted. We both did. Feels like a weight has been lifted. I know now that we never had a future together and never would have. But on the other hand, I'm sad it's over. All these years, maybe hoping something would happen, were for nothing. But in the end, this is an ending, and I finally have closure. Few people get to say that. Do I believe her story? Yes, I do. And even if she's full of it at this point, does it matter? I always knew her as a very weak, meek person. She usually did what everyone told her to and often ran away when things got too hard. She avoids her problems because she was always too weak to face them. I mean, it makes sense why her family wouldn't speak to me about her. They were typical tiger parents who disowned their problematic child.